the chief put these out. Some of you have already filled it out. We did it in our January, February newsletter, but if you haven't, please make sure. And if you're not sure, which God knows I wouldn't be sure, you can fill it out again, not a problem. Just make sure that we have it. Okay, so that's what's important. A couple of other things. Don't forget, we have our annual fundraiser happening. Tickets are $1 each, $10 for 12 tickets. It is our only fundraiser. We do it for 8 weeks. Each basket is worth over $300. If you saw them, some of them are extraordinary. You okay, Karen? So we ask that everyone participate because we do try and raise around $4,000, $5,000, and 100% goes towards elders in the community. So it's really important. And even if who's won a basket? Is anybody here? You won a basket. Alice is with Doris is one. Okay, see, yeah, Dean is one. So aren't the baskets worth it?
Yes.
The baskets are amazing. So even if you don't win, you're still helping the community. But if you do win, it's really amazing. So please participate. A couple of other things. Don't forget we have Chronicles Ted Reinstein coming in October. If you have things that you think are worth money, toys or sports memorabilia, sports cards, he will look at them and tell you if you should bring it to Savers or keep it. I mean, basically, is it worth saving or not? And I think if we're asking for $3, but that includes the fact that you will get an estimate if it's worth something. And the person who's doing it is actually from Westwood. So we still have plenty of room in that one. And we still have plenty, that's the sports memorabilia. And then we have Ted Reinstein coming from Chronicle, and he's gonna do I'm not gonna say it right because I don't have it in front of me, but he's gonna talk about baseball and breaking the color code. I heard it's a fabulous presentation. He also has books that he will sign, which can make great holiday gifts. So please, if you're interested, make sure you sign up. We're doing it at the library, because usually we have a lot of people when Ted Reinstein comes, so we tend to do it there. Okay, so I think that's pretty much it. Please look at the October newsletter, because we have a lot going on. We still have some room for the lunch and theater program at Norwood, so if you're interested in that, make sure you sign up for that as well. We're working on November, December. We have a lot going on in November and December, so get excited, because you think we have a lot going on in September and October, but you see what we're doing in November and December. Now I'll be quiet, well, for one more second. I would like to introduce you to Chief Deckers. I have had the honor and the pleasure of working with him since you started here, what, 5 years or 4 years ago?
5 years.
5 years. I've been here 7, he started 5 years ago. We would not have had the COVID shots without him. So many things that have happened in town that have helped seniors. Behind the scenes, he has helped make it happen. And I tell people that all the time because it's the truth. And I have enjoyed and truly appreciated all of your support, so thank you. Now, I don't know you as well. Now, Chief Silva was supposed to be here. He is stuck in Mansfield. I'm not quite sure doing what, but I guess it's really important. So, he was explaining it to me.
Otherwise he'd be here.
Yeah, otherwise he'd be here, but it went right over my head. So, so we have had the dear, I'm not gonna say your last name correctly, Sergeant.
That's okay. It's Sergeant Mike Delala, for those of you who don't know me.
Sergeant,
Thanks for having
see
me.
Mary Ellen's waving over there.
Yes.
And he will be talking on what's happening in the Westwood Police Department. So thank you, gentlemen, so much for coming. We so appreciate both of you being here. And thank you, my seniors, for joining us, because this is the kind of programming I think is really important and that everybody should know what's going on. All right, without much more ado, go for it.
All right, well, thank you very much for having. Can everyone in the back hear me? I tend to have a booming voice, so if I'm too loud, let me know. I'll try to quiet down a bit for
It
you.
can't be more loud than mine.
That's probably true. One of the big things that is from a public safety firefighting mindset, one of the first things that we do when we go to meetings is we make sure we point out where the egresses are in case there's a problem and how to get out of the building. So your exit door over here is really where you'd probably want to go. Human nature forces us to go back the same way we come into every building. So if you normally go to the movie theater, most people are going to go out the same door that they went into. If you remember several years ago, we had the Station Club fire down in Rhode Island. Over 100 people lost their lives. One of the reasons they attributed that to is everybody tried to go out the same way they got in, even though there were literally exits right next to where they were sitting. So what we want you to do is every time that you go out, every time you go to a movie theater, a restaurant, wherever you're gonna go, look for the closest exit to you and try never to go out the same way you went in the case of an emergency. Just food for thought. My kids, when they were young, would do that, and we lost my oldest at a Chinese restaurant. It was a buffet, and all of a sudden, we're like, where is he? Where is he? He was up counseling the manager at 7 years old, counseling the manager who had high chairs and other chairs stuck in an exit door row. I'm like, okay, come back to the table and sit down. But so my kids have been thinking about it forever. It will keep you safe, just something to think about. So really what I'm here today is to give you an overview of what's going on with the fire department, your fire department. Also to tell you about the services that we provide to you. And then also, I want a lot of your feedback, because we can only get better, because, I say this all the time, that we work with great people. But we can only get better with the input from the public, and we're more than willing to sit there and listen to you. Send me emails. If you use that technology, stop by the main station, which is right here on High Street. If you see the red car with a C1 on it, I'm there. So come and see me. I'd be happy to show you around and happy to listen to your thoughts of how we could do better. Hopefully you never have to use our services. We're normally responding to people's homes on their worst days. So hopefully we never see you, but if you do see us, understand you're going to get some of the best people working with you at that scene. We have a couple different things. We offer emergency medical services. We provide the paramedic service in town, the ambulances that bring you from your horrible day to a great hospital and make you better. And in transition, you're working with some great people, as I said. We just recently promoted a brand new EMS officer, a young kid, really eager, is looking to grow that program, hopefully to a point where we actually do more preventative work, where we're going to come out, hopefully be here, do some blood pressure clinics and things like that. We just have to figure out how we're going to work that into our call volume, because we're a pretty busy department. We do about 4,000 calls a year for service. On average, we look at about 10 to 12 calls per day. So we're pretty busy. We run 2 ambulances a day now. If you've been following the select board in their meetings, they actually approved us additional funding so that we can now staff to 9 members, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, which is a benefit to you as a community. It allows us to rely less on mutual aid ambulances, even though depending on time of day, normally between 8 o'clock in the morning until 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock at night. There's times where we'll be running 3 medicals, so you may be transported on like a Norwood or a Walpole ambulance, but that's okay. They have great people working for them too. The key is that you're gonna get the best possible help with that, because we could never staff enough ambulances to hit all call volume, so we have to work with our mutual aid partners to make that happen. We run out of 2 stations here in town. The main station on High Street, and the newer station that was built in 2017 in Islington. We will be coming to the town shortly, looking to rebuild our Station 1. That building has literally reached its end of life. It's falling down around itself. I hope every morning when I come in, the apparatus is on the apparatus floor, not in the basement. But we're working towards that. We're just in October, I think at the select board meeting, we're gonna be presenting the plan, the facility study that was done. If you've been watching a lot of that, you've seen the operational study that was done. So we're moving in the right direction. We're staffing accordingly. We're staffing to demand. The beauty is this town is very proactive in getting the services to you. It's been a great town to work in for me as a fire chief, because pretty much they just say yes. when we ask it, and it's folks like you that support that ability to get done. And we're not asking for the moon. We're asking what you need to get the services to deliver to you. The other thing we do, and thankfully not a lot, is we are your fire department, meaning those big red trucks with the big ladder on top or a pumper. We show up, at fires. Thankfully this year, we've done 4 fires in town. Thankfully not big fires. And we've been able to get there quickly. I was just doing an analysis of this earlier today. For the 4 fires, we responded in under 2 minutes from the time we got the alarm to the time we were on your front door. So for the 4 fires that we went to in town. Thankfully, we don't have that many fires, but the fires we have today, it's really, really important. I'm going to talk about it a little bit further on, but it's really important that you get out of your homes. These sheets that Lena talked about are important too, so that we know if there's somebody at home that may have some mobility issues or something like that, because we actually get that up on our technology and our responding pieces of apparatus that, Jane, is in the first bedroom on the right, has some mobility issues. So we know immediately where to go and look for people, at 2 o'clock in the morning. Because most of us do end up in our bedrooms at 2 o'clock in the morning, I would hope. I know myself, I fall asleep on the couch in the living room, but you'll trip across me if you enter my house at that time of the morning. So we run 2 stations, staffed 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, at a minimum of nine people on staff at all times. We also took over the emergency management mission in town 2 years after I got here. And then, of course, we had the pandemic. That was the nice test that I was thrown. There you go, Chief. See what you can do with this. I think we did really well. If we didn't have to worry about the governor taking our vaccines away, we would have been able to vaccinate 16,000 people in the time frame because that's what we set up. And again, that's thanks to all of you for making that happen and screaming loudly. We were able to get the seniors done because people were here screaming about, we need to get our seniors done, so thank you for that. In emergency management, the big thing that I want to stress with all of you is the federal government, as you've probably heard if you watch news, with the migrant population that's hitting the state. We're the only state in the country that has a safe haven for migrants. And we're trying to deal with that, as we can. They're taking migrants now and just putting them into communities, so be aware of that. If you have an open hotel that has rooms, they're booking them and putting them in. They're not putting them into the big cities, what they call gateway cities. So we have to be prepared for that as a community. That's on our shoulders on the public safety side and also the health department. So it's important that we keep that in the back of our minds, that we have that mission that we're going to be doing. But the big thing that the federal government wants to make sure that all our residents can do is survive by yourself for the first 72 hours of any incident. So when we put out those notices, and one of the big things we're really pushing this sign up is because a lot of folks aren't using social media. We use social media as a great advertising tool to pick that up, say, hey, there's a hurricane coming. Prepare. We try to give you enough notice, Same thing with like a major snowstorm, enough notice so you can get to, the grocery stores, pick up your groceries, make sure you have water in the house, make sure you have everything that you need, plenty of blankets in case plenty of wood for the fireplace. However, whatever you need to prepare yourself. We send a lot of information out via our social media, but this sheet and this system that we've put in place through the police department and dispatch, we'll be able to send a call to you. So you'll get a phone call from us telling you, hey, there is a snowstorm coming, expect power outage, be prepared, and just passing along information to you. For those that don't use social media, you'll also see it on our social media too. So that's the key. We want you to be self-sufficient for the first 72 hours. If you have questions about that, again, stop by. We'll give you the flyers and hand everything out. We can walk you through what you need for a kit and all that good stuff. We share a dispatch center between police and fire. We actually created basically a communications manager a couple of years ago because we have so many needs, and our needs for fire are a little different than the police department and the EMS side of it. And the beauty of our town is we have our own dispatch center. We don't necessarily share a regional dispatch center. So we have our own people that we know that know our system and everything that work with us, which is great for us to be able to do that. And it provides us a lot of information because they understand the town, they know the buildings, they know the area, they know the people. So it's a great system for us. When you call 911, you're getting a real live person, you're not getting a tree. You know, where, hello, you've reached the town of West Hartford, press 1 if this is, you don't get that. You actually get a live person that you're gonna talk to. We also wanna make sure those of you that happen to have the routine numbers for the fire department, do not call those numbers when you're in an emergency. The reason is you may or may not get someone in the firehouse because we may be dealing with another problem somewhere else. Call 911. 911 initiates the system. That gets our dispatchers start the process, they dispatch the right people to the right place at the right time. So you want to make sure that do not use our routine number. I came in one morning when I first got here, and there were messages left on. Hey, I have a smoke detector going off in my house. And when I circled back, no one ever came. Because we never got the message, because it went to a voicemail. So I got rid of all voicemail, so that can't happen anymore, just in case you do call. It's gonna keep round robining until it gets to a real person if you call our routine numbers. If you're having a problem, call 911. If you think it's a problem, guess what it is? A problem, okay? Don't worry about bothering us. You all pay taxes here in town. We work for you. So do not be afraid to call us. Anytime, time of day, time of night, doesn't matter, please initiate that 911. One of the big things that I strive for is something called system-based practice. And what that basically is understanding where we fit as the public safety in the town. But we, like I said before, the only way we get better is to make sure that you give us the feedback. I love to hear, if you've had problems. I really love to hear when we've done a great job, okay? That does not happen as much as the other side. And I can tell you on the other side, it's rare that I get phone calls. I don't know about you guys.
It's rare.
It's rare that we get phone calls that you did not get the service that you expected. So that makes me really happy as your fire chief. That means our people, our employees are delivering the service you expected of them. But with that said, if you ever have a bad experience, we want to know about it. Pick that phone up, call me, I'll meet with you, and we'll chat it out, figure out how we can fix it so it never happens again. But it's rare. I think I can count on one hand the number of times in 5 years that I've had to deal with a resident over a mis-expectation of service delivered. So that's awesome. And, we're here to serve you, and we're only a moment's notice away from you, literally. As I explained for the fires, under 2 minutes, we were in the homes dealing with that issue, so that's awesome. One of the big things that we have that we added to our deployment of our mission is the Senior Safe. Are all of you familiar with what that is? No? So the Senior Safe basically is Senior Safe, the word, is senior awareness of fire education. So again, our team, which is made up of 5 people, they will come out to your home. They will check your home for smoke detectors to make sure you have the right smoke. You've had us there?
I heard about it. I haven't. Oh, you have? Yes.
Yep. They'll come out, we'll take a look, we'll give you guidance, we'll change your batteries if we have to, because we don't want some of our residents up on ladders, because if they fall from the ladder, then I have to bring an ambulance and I have to bring them to the hospital. So we don't want that. So what we want you to do is call us, we'll come out, we'll change your batteries, we'll give you the right guidance on where the smoke detector should be. But that's what we used to do. What we do now is even bigger than that. We're coming and we'd like to inventory your whole home and look for hazards. okay? We're looking for people misusing, and it's not on purpose, it's sometimes you have to do it because some of the old homes that we live in only had one outlet in a room, not grounded, okay? And we put a extension cord upon extension cord upon extension cord, okay, to get to the TV so we could watch the TV. And then the TV, of course, has the Game Boy, the PlayStation, the VCR, the Blu-ray, and all of a sudden we have a fire in an outlet because we've overloaded the outlet. So we want to come, look, give you suggestions on how to fix that. So we look at that. Cooking stuff, making sure the kitchens are, straightened out, making sure we're not storing paper goods on the stove, and then the cat gets up on the stove and turns the stove on, and then there's a kitchen fire. The true stories here, I don't lie. Those are true stories. So we want to make sure that that's taken care of. We also want to look at slip and fall hazards. That's a massive issue with these throw rugs and people that have some mobility issues. My wife literally is just getting over having her knee replaced. 57 years old, she did a great job, but I had to remove all the throw rugs so that she didn't trip and fall in the process and ruin her knee again. So we look at all that stuff, and then we're there to answer your questions. Any questions you have, ask away while we're there. You can schedule all of that through Lena's team, and then they'll schedule, our team will get a list of who wants, we're gonna call you. So if you see a Dedham phone number that you don't recognize, it could be the fire department if you put a call into us. We also brought to town a concept of neighbors helping neighbors. So what we want folks to do is check on their neighbors, especially during storms and things like that. So reach out to your neighbors and say, hey, can you just check on me, just make sure I'm still alive, and I'm here, because what ends up happening, especially during, power outages and people forget to charge their iPhone before the storm. If they have a home line, the home line came down, and you have no way to call 911. Let your neighbors know. Try to reach out and check out with your neighbors. And then those of you that have other neighbors, check on them and return the favor. So that's the concept of neighbors helping neighbors. We want you to adopt a neighbor. We also ran a campaign early on in my career here of adopt a fire hydrant, which is for the winter. I don't expect many of you in this room to be adopting fire hydrants, because when you adopt it, you're supposed to shovel it, okay? We still want that. We still want people to adopt those hydrants, because we want, during big storms for those hydrants to be clear so we can, get to them, get the water out of them and put the fire out in your house. That's the goal. Like I said before, is the resident notification, and, we will not cold call you and, ask you to buy stuff from us and, anything like that. It's literally information sharing, so that we have your information in case of emergency. And as you can see at the bottom, towards the bottom, we're looking for people too that have, oxygen generators, dialysis, so that you actually have to plug in. And if you miss that dialysis, if we know your area town is gonna be out of power for 24 or 48 hours because of the damage that has occurred, we want to know this so that we can make arrangements maybe to move you to a safer location, touch base with you, and maybe move you to a family, or maybe a neighbor, if you adopted a neighbor. But move you so that you're safe and that you have the power to do what you need to do. The only way we know that is if you update that information for us and keep us updated with that. We're going to be doing a lot more emergency planning. We're in the process of rewriting the town-wide emergency, the comprehensive emergency planning manual. So we're in the middle of that. So what can the fire department do for you that we're not doing for you already? Anyone? And you can be totally out of the box. You can think out of the box. If we can't do it, I'll let you know, but I'll research it first. But what are we doing that you think, what are we not doing that you think we should be doing? Anything?
A question about when you go into the fire department and you don't see anybody, you have to ring a bell or something like that. Is that going to be the same system if you get a new fire station?
Yes, because we basically utilize all of our staff. So during the daytime hours at the current location, you would hit my office manager if you came to Station 1. But there's buttons that you then get dispatch. Most likely during the day, most of the time, we have somebody in the front office, because that's where our captains all work. But if no one's there, most likely, they're out servicing in the community. They're either providing a service, inspecting buildings, training, or literally interfacing with the public. So we don't have the capacity to put somebody on a desk 24 hours a day. We capitalize on that, and then you get our awesome dispatch center that will call us. So the other day, nobody was in quarters. Somebody came up, they were actually driving themselves to the hospital. They were having a medical emergency. They decided, I don't think I'm going to make the hospital. So they stopped and got a hold of us. We were able to call back, get an ambulance to come back that was out on the road training, pick this individual up at the hospital. Great solution for that individual. It's a good thing they stopped. So that's the important thing. So yes, we have all of that technology. There's some things I'm looking at. Again, I'm a little outside the box myself in my thinking. You know, I would almost like when you push the button, it comes up and you see the dispatcher. But we have to do some upgrades at our dispatching center to do that. But yes, so you will still have to do that, but for the most part, if somebody's there, you'll push the button and somebody will show up. When you walk into the door, into the main vestibule at Station 1, it actually rings alarms throughout the department that someone's there. So we know, we're not waiting for you to ring that bell. I put that in too, so that, you know, it goes upstairs and downstairs and in my office, that someone's in that front vestibule. And there's cameras, so like in my office and throughout the fire department, I look up, I can see who came in, and if they continued through because they had the access code or there's someone standing there, then I get up and I'll even go to the door to take care of somebody. So we have the technology to handle that. Any other questions? Because the next thing I had on mine was, any questions for the fire chief? Because I'm your fire chief, so.
I'd just like to say thank you. This is a great opportunity for us to learn more about the fire department. You said quite a few things today that are educationally important that, you know, we've lived here, but we don't really know. So this is one service that is nice that you're providing to this population, and maybe other populations are interested to do the same. And also, I was wondering, do you still go into schools and educate kids like about fire safety and Sparky the fire dog and
Yes.
all that kind of thing?
Yep. So when I was talking about the senior safe, that comes in two components. So I only decided to speak about senior safe, but thank you for the parlay. We actually have the SAFE, which is called the Student Awareness Fire Education. So we have a pretty big team that literally goes into every school in town and provides those classes. We had to shut it down during COVID. We tried to do it remotely, it just didn't work in the remote setting. But we are spun that back up, so we're now doing that. We're visiting them. We also go out as part of the state's mandate. We have to do fire alarms, 4 times a year in every single school, so we do that also. But yes, our team is out in the schools, literally doing that. And we're right now looking at instituting a brand-new program for our graduating seniors on dorm safety. So not so that it's, hey, what's going on in Westwood? It's like, hey, what's going on at Syracuse? Where you're going to be attending school and dorm safety and things like that. So we're looking to bring that course to our seniors, hopefully this year.
That's great. I used to teach kindergarten, and when I did, the firefighters would come, and the kids loved it. They got to go in the fire truck, they wore the hat, they sang songs to the firefighters. And the important thing is they always taught them to stop, drop, and roll, and cover your face, and all of that. And that was their key message: stop, drop, and roll. And so when they were leaving, one of the firefighters said, "So now what will you do if your clothes are on fire?" And one little person said, "I wouldn't put them on."
Good answer. Did anyone go to and see the live burn demonstration we did at Westwood Day? So in the past, we had been using that demonstration to sell the importance of home sprinklers. That message was being lost on most people because they saw this big fire and they didn't really see the value or the understanding of building with a sprinkler, building without. So what we did this year is we showed 2 separate demonstrations of how fast a fire grows. And you saw how fast that fire grows. Within 2 minutes, that room, that 8x8 room or 8x10 room, was fully involved. So within 2 minutes, if you don't get out of that room, you're not getting out of that room. You will perish in that room. So that's why I said early on when I first started, is the goal for us is to make sure that you get out of your room. Those of you that might live at Highland Glen, Westwood Glen, the Gables, that all have, alarm systems in the building. When the alarm system goes off, we do want you to leave. I know in some buildings it's an inconvenience because they probably go off more than you'd like them to go off, but we do want you to leave. I was actually at a conference and the alarm in the hotel went off. Nobody left. It's one of the worst things for us because, as you remember me telling you,
What about a home fire extinguisher? How do you feel about those? Or sometimes I see online like these fire blankets, like if you have a small kitchen fire, are those any good?
so if you have the fire blankets that are true fire blankets, absolutely. You want to get that fire in its smallest phase, meaning that as early as possible. If it's gotten outside the pan, 911 and get out, because you may not get it. And if you don't get it, you may trap yourself depending on the configuration of your kitchen. You may only have like one way into the kitchen. Not many of our new homes don't have that, but several of the apartments have a one way into the kitchen. And if you get between the exit of the kitchen and the fire, then you're trapped in there. That's a problem. So that's why we would rather you get out as fast as you can. Extinguisher, if you have the ability to utilize an extinguisher and you think you're comfortable using an extinguisher, definitely worth a try because you can do that from a farther distance. And that's using, we could go over that, we could spend a whole day. If we want, we can come up here and do some training too for extinguishers too. But yeah, if you can get it quickly, and it's what we call its incipient phase. That means it's literally just starting, and when you saw that fire at Westwood Day, you saw a little trickle of flame in the corner by like a waste paper basket. If you can get it right then and there, fine. If it gets into that couch, leave it alone. We'll get there, and we'd much rather you be outside, because you can, with insurance, we just replace the house. No insurance will replace a person.
Can you,
How, this feasibility study for a new firehouse, is it gonna be the same square footage, is it going to be larger?
No, it's definitely larger because we've outgrown that facility almost by double of the size. We've outgrown it. And the town has grown, so we're building a system. We're incorporating both the main station and Station 2 in the overall plan, so it grows like that. So it is definitely larger, and the programming is different from what it was when it was built in 1945, and then with an addition put on in 1978. So we are much bigger.
We've talked a lot about housing here, Chief, in terms of in medical situations and all of your safety capabilities of handling those two incidences. We're very fortunate here in Westwood. We have a lot of foliage. We have a lot of tree areas as well. Are you working with the conservation community to otherwise understand what fire hazards are out there in various conservation areas? I'm in a butter, by the way, over at the Curry and Anderson conservation property. And I have to tell you, I thought your comment about egress was wonderful, starting out the tail, because that was exactly the reason I showed up today. We've had a couple of situations out in the middle of the field where some young folks have gotten together, and there's a lot of debris out there, et cetera, as you well know. The problem with that whole area is there is no egress in or out of there. And so We have your staff coming through backyards and what have you with hoses and what have you. It's not the most ideal situation for your folks to be traipsing through people's backyards, but that's kind of the way it is. Is there an attempt there to work with the Conservation Committee to see if you can't clean up some of these otherwise fire hazards that are sitting out there in just conservation property?
So I think that's a great point. We don't have anything actively going with the conservation at this time. It is probably something we should be looking at, especially as you look at the United States as a whole, and really as the world as a whole. We used to have what are known as fire seasons for brush fire. It's no longer a fire season. It happens all year long. So there is a concern with, cleaning up conservation, but then on the other side of that is, hey, that's natural. You can't go in and take down those fallen trees because they need to rot and they need to do this. And so we have to balance that. So I think that is definitely a campaign that we should definitely look at. And
I definitely hear the natural argument. In fact, I've had that argument a couple of times with the Conservation Committee. The reality is we're living in a residential community here. We're not living in the woods. We're out in Colorado, we're not wherever. We're living in Westwood, for heaven's sakes, which is within a commute of downtown Boston. So it seems to me that, to your point about fire hazards and what have you, Smokey is up and well, and he is working 24/7, whether we like it or not. And so I bring it to your attention only because we've had a couple of incidents out there, and I know your staff is not very happy when we make the call, despite the fact there's a fire hydrant right up in front of my house, and they have easy access through the stone walls and over hill and dale to get to the issue. It's really not a very comfortable situation.
no, and it's not. And then in some of the areas, just so you know, we have been working on widening our fire access roadways. So those were unmaintained for a long time, and those are now being maintained, and we're going through widening them, where they just put in, the new school. We actually had a section that we couldn't get through at all. Someone had put rocks in, and blocked our access to getting in there. So we've changed a lot of that stuff, and it's one of those things is bringing these, these concepts up because there's a lot of moving parts going on in town, but by all means, float that up. I'm gonna write down that note to look at that. I had a resident call me a few weeks back concerned about her property, to your point, with their fallen trees and who's supposed to take care of that. And it's a tough question because it's not town property, it's residential property. So it's tough to make people clean up their woods and things like that. But we do see it as a concern. Thank you for bringing that up. Anyone else?
Sir, where I live, I have no trees, but I'm surrounded by trees.
Surrounded by?
I'm surrounded by trees.
Okay.
I live in the, what do they call that, the maze.
Mm-hmm.
And people don't really, most people don't take care of their trees. So what's happening is my house is engulfed with the trees. So is it my responsibility to cut those trees back?
That's a legal question that I don't want.
Because that's a fire hazard, and it also is a storms.
Yeah, definitely. It's,
My house is gonna be
yeah.
gone.
There's a couple issues with that. Some people will say you can trim back what's ever hanging over your property, and the problem when you do that, in some cases, if they over trim, the wind will take that tree differently and then bring it down on your house, where before it would have not done it. So you have to get arborists involved, you have to get the lawyers involved to know what's right. It's tough because for us, we don't have any say over your private properties. The only time I have a say over your private property is when I'm there on an emergency and we actually technically have ownership of your home at that time.
They trimmed the trees across the street because that's on
Power lines.
town land,
Yeah.
and it's power lines. But if it's a tree on my side, it goes over that side, you don't touch it.
Right.
Even though it's close to the power line, that's how far the tree has grown. If I
Okay.
notice that a lot of trees in Westwood, in other towns too, because of the wet weather we've had, that the trees are actually grown together in the streets and making it look like it's dark out, and it's not.
Not, yeah.
In both sides of the street, the trees are grown together.
Yeah, so what I would do, I would suggest that you do is just check with a lawyer to see what rights you have as a private landowner. And then if it is a tree that's on a town property that you're concerned about, you can speak with, the Department of Public Works and work through that.
I'd just like to add to that, do you have the property properly surveyed? Do you know exactly where the property, a lot of the times, we call these civil disputes. Sometimes it's just best to talk it out with your neighbors, go the diplomatic route. You're already shaking your head. Yeah, we know in reality, right, they don't wanna hear from the neighbor saying that they wanna split the cost.
Trim the trees.
Right,
Because some people say it's their nature.
Right.
The trees to
right.
keep growing.
Yeah. I'm just suggesting, just preliminarily, the first things first is actually know where your property lines are. Because I'd say 90% of these civil disputes, whether it's a shed on someone's property or trees, branches going over someone else's property, most of the time, the residents don't even know where their actual property lines are. So until you definitively know where those lines are, maybe you have a surveyor come out, you've got stakes.
We all know our property line.
Respectfully, I know people say that, but then they really don't know
My
when
neighbor
they have
has
officers.
Her property line surveyed. I had
Yeah.
mine surveyed.
Perfect.
Sure. So you got stakes out there.
The other side hasn't.
Yeah.
But, it's, people are people. That's, they don't wanna,
That's
put
what
the
we
money
say
on
every day.
taking care of the trees. They think that the town's responsible, and I told them, no, the town is not responsible.
We're not.
I mean, because a lot of people feel that, if they have a big huge branch comes down, that
The town will be by to pick it up?
they're gonna call the town, and the town is gonna
Yeah.
take it away. And,
Not-
and I
not
tell them,
normal.
no, it's not the law, but they feel as if because they are of a certain age, they reached a point, of no return, let's face it, they're in their 80s or in their 90s, and they feel that they will come down, feel sympathy for them to take that big, huge branch away.
Yeah. That's a neighbor adopting a neighbor to help out in that branch that comes down.
Yeah.
If you don't have any more questions, I'll be here all afternoon.
I just have a quick question, just out of curiosity. Station 1, where does that actually, the boundary, what area of the town does that service? Because interestingly, I was in Islington one time and there was an alarm going off in a building. And the firehouse was 3 doors down, but they said they were waiting for them to come from Station 1.
Okay, so depending upon what's going on, normally, if you look, our territories basically is from Milk Street towards High Street, over, by Oak up to 128 is all Station 1 as their first due. The other is Station 2, University Ave, as their first due. If Engine 2 is down on University Ave handling another call, you will get the engine out of Station 1. So we have one fire department with 2 firehouses. We have first due areas, as I explained, so that if everybody's in quarters, the first due company will be sent. If not, it will be a second due company. I mean, if both of those companies are busy, you may see a Walpole engine show up at your house, or a Norwood engine show up at your house, or a Dedham engine show up at your house. That's the beauty of the mutual aid system that we have developed in the Norfolk County. So that we don't just hang you out, we don't stack your fire. We're gonna stack your fire call and your house is burning, well, we'll get to it when we get to it, and, we'll see you when. Yeah, we got a cat up in a tree over here, we gotta handle that one first. We don't stack calls, and that's the beauty of our system. We've developed a very robust mutual aid system. We, as a community, can support 3 minor incidences at the same time. Okay, that's how we're designed right now, especially with our minimum staffing of 9 personnel. We can handle 3 incidences. We can handle 1 large incident. So if you have a house fire, you're gonna have all assets at that house. And we're gonna have other assets coming by mutual aid, 1, to backfill the town, and 2, to help support the fire incident itself. It grows very quickly when that occurs, and it's within seconds the notifications occur. Once we confirm a working fire, we get, and then we have these cards that go out to multiple alarm calls. We get towns from Canton, Stoughton, Randolph, Milton. I don't think we'll ever see Boston in here, but in Dedham, we'll see Boston. I'm gonna let the sergeant give you an update on what the PD is doing.
Thank you, Chief Deckers. Thank you for having me. My name's Sergeant Mike Delala. I serve as the administrative sergeant for the PD, and I also am the accreditation manager. There's a lot going on at the PD these days. I'll just start by saying that our department has slowly been growing. When I first came on the job, there were 26 sworn police officers. Right now, we're at 35 sworn. And we've actually just recently put in for a federal COPS grant for 3 more police officers to get us up to 38 officers, which is where we probably should be, given how much this town has actually grown over the past 10, 20 years, especially with the development of University Ave. Yeah, it's amazing. Went from really a rural, quiet town to Westwood's pretty busy. I think we all see that. 109 traffic is a number 1 issue. That's why we have more officers dedicated to targeting those areas. Washington Street, Route 1, University Ave. The town's, it's a really happening place these days. So with that being said, I'm proud to announce that we just actually, for the first time, recently got accredited, and that was my main job as the accreditation manager. For those of you who don't know, accreditation is a process where agencies or organizations strive towards industry standards, meeting industry standards. Especially today, it's more important more than ever. People are demanding transparency from their police departments. They want to know that their local police departments are professional, well-trained, educated, know what they're doing. And accreditation was a great opportunity for us to go out and show the residents that this is something we've been doing. We've actually been doing it all along for many years. I was actually surprised to learn when I got into this, a lot of the standards that I was going through, we've been doing it. So I think that's a testament to the type of officers you guys have here in town. So we got fully accredited this past year, something we're very proud of, and something the residents should know. You've got a fine police department, and we do things by the book, and we're doing things right. We've just recently hired 2 new police officers. Officer Silvera from Chicopee PD out in Western Mass. He's originally from Brockton and was looking to get closer to home, and we're happy to bring him on. We have another officer, Brianna Park. She comes to us from Easton PD, and she's another fine addition. I think a lot of you'll eventually see them out there, and we're really happy to have them on. When you always have, when you have new officers coming on, that means that some officers are going out the door. And I'd just like to announce that longtime Sergeant Paul Sicard, many of you here probably know Paul. He's been with us for 36 years, and I can't tell you a more dedicated town employee, grew up in the town, served this town for that long. He surely is going to be missed, and he's retiring in early November. So credit to Paul Sicard and everything he's given us to the department. So as our department has grown, we've also added some more specialties. Our investigation services, when I started here, we had 1 detective and 1 court prosecutor. We now have 4 detectives, a prosecutor, and a detective sergeant. That's largely due to just, by nature, the town has been growing, more calls for service. more need for investigative services. We have 2 new dedicated traffic units. These officers go out, day in and day out, specifically targeting traffic complaints and traffic issues that we have here in town. And that's not to say that the other officers that we have on patrol aren't doing that, but they're doing other things like responding to calls, checking in with the schools, following up with other issues other than traffic. So we're quite busy in that area as well. And we do have a newly promoted sergeant, Joe Rashid. He's been with us for 6 years. He's now on our day shift and midnight shifts, and proud to say that he's our newly promoted supervisor in patrol. So you were all wondering, how is the police department helping our, our elder community here in Westwood? I can tell you, we work with you guys a lot. I mean, I can say we're up in Highland Glen assisting the fire department with lift assists and medical calls and things like that. But identity fraud is the #1 area of concern for most of our elder residents in town. It's something that's always been consistent. It's always been out there. And unfortunately, it's always going to be a target population for criminals trying to steal your money and steal your identity. So I really wanted to focus on that and just kind of give you guys a little bit of a background. I'm sure most of you know when you get that phone call, if you don't know who it is, you really shouldn't continue speaking with that person. Just simply say, thank you, I don't know who you are, and hang up. But unfortunately, we do have residents in town, for whatever reason, maybe they get confused or maybe they're just looking to talk to somebody. They get swindled into a lot of these fraudulent activities. And I mean, I've seen everything from, the grandchild in jail, they'll call asking for money, to simply just basically going into your mail, taking your mail, and figuring out who you are and what your identification numbers are like, and then they steal your credit card information and things like that. So that's something that you guys should always be out there looking, monitoring, and just making sure that you're not giving out any information to people that you don't know. And at the end of the day, that's what we're here for. If you suspect anything that's out of the usual, give us a call. No call for service is too small. That's really our motto. 90% of what we do is actually not even criminal, but on something like this, give us a call. We'll be more than happy to help. There shouldn't be any reluctance. Like I said, we're all pretty friendly, and a lot of us grew up here in town, so that shouldn't be an issue. And kind of to piggyback off of Chief Decker's, being a good neighbor, keeping a watchful eye, that's what's really the essence of what we call community policing. Community policing kind of tends to be like a popular buzz term in like police strategy. I think we're naturally and inherently community police officers because we've got such a good relationship with our residents. We don't have some of the barriers that bigger cities might have. Our residents are not reluctant to pick up the phone and call us. They'll call us, because their plumbing's broken. I happen to be a plumber, so I love those calls. I go and before my life before this, I was a master plumber, so I'll go and fix a leaky faucet or whatever needs to be attended to. But that's the type.
Or
of
they'll call us.
Or they'll call the fire, but then I'll hijack it and I'll show up. I'll take care of that. I think it's just we love to reiterate. I know we're police officers. People typically like to think that we just deal specifically with crime. It's a very small percentage of what we do. It's really just community service. So again, I encourage you, you see something out of the normal, call us, because you guys are the best eyes and ears for us. And we can't be everywhere all at once. And even though we have, on any given shift, 4 or 5, maybe even 6 patrol cars in the town of Westwood, which is a decent amount of coverage, we just still can't get to everywhere we need to be. So we encourage you to call and tell us what's going on and when you need help. So with that being said, I'm sure on the police end, there's always a lot of questions. So I encourage you, please, ask any questions you'd like to ask.
I have one question.
Sure, ma'am.
I go every week to Roach Brothers in the morning. And there's a lot of traffic going down Clavertree Street, because people are going to work. Set of lights down there, you must have heard complaints about that.
Turning left?
It's a very dangerous, I've seen close calls to take that turn to the left because there's no left turn on that light. And it's dangerous, it's extremely dangerous. No police car or anything on there. People have to go through the red light. They're going through the red light, 6 or 7, 8 cars that are whack, taking that left,
Okay.
because they have.
I'm fully aware of how tricky it can be to navigate coming down Clappertree Street, turning left with traffic coming up during rush hour traffic, but I was unaware of actually how many red light violations that might be occurring.
So don't do that.
Today at Pilates, one of my seniors got caught there and they said it's impossible to make that left. And they were pulled over and they said to the police officer, it's impossible to make this left. Just so you know, Barbara, actually had that conversation this morning.
So that
Just saying.
It's the same at Bubble Brook. Bubble Brook,
Yeah?
we need a light over there. Because I go over my door, I can never turn on 109.
109 is
Sometimes I
becoming a
wait
freeway service
5
anyway.
minutes.
like I said earlier, 109 traffic is it's a creature of its own during the morning commute and even in the afternoon.
3 to 5, 6 o'clock.
Impossible.
So,
You know, Maria, you're gonna have to figure out a different way to go there.
yeah, and so, just so everyone,
We're gonna have to go a
yeah,
different
so
way.
everyone knows too,
Yeah.
that the town is actually in the process of redoing, what do they call that? It's a,
Engineering?
well, there's an engineering project going on for the lighting, so it changes, so basically it makes it a smart system.
Yeah,
The signal, and
yeah.
I'm drawing a blank on actually the.
Flow going?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're working on that right now. It's actually in the process of being built out. So that may fix some of your concern without adding another light. There's always problems with adding lights too. Yeah. Yeah. So,
Yeah, I will agree with Chief Deckers that when appropriate, adding traffic lights can help mitigate the issue at hand, but it can also create problems at the same time. I mean, just even take the lights in the center of town. Those lights triggering on and off to let Hartford Street out and to let Gay Street out actually impedes traffic at the same time. So that's something I can bring to the attention of our traffic officers. If there's something we can do more on the enforcement end, like you said, ma'am, if there's red light violations.
But I'm not worried about, I'm worried about the fact that, don't you think there should be a light for the turn on the left side?
An act-
Obviously, he's gonna look into it.
I-
Barbara. He can't say yes and then not do
Right,
anything.
it's something that we can go back to the drawing board, reevaluate, maybe come up with a strategy or a plan to see if we can mitigate that issue.
Accidents there. I mean, I know there's been quite.
We do, and I'll attribute that to it being one of our major intersections in town. To be honest, of all the crashes that we have in town, which we average between 400 or 500 a year, I would say it's probably actually on the smaller side of incidences in that traffic. You'd be surprised.
Yeah.
We have other locations in town that are actually.
On the other side, as you're going up, they should have a cop there because they're always going on the wrong side. We're going straight ahead going onto Clappertree Street. The other way's supposed to make the turn onto Washington Street, but they're going straight ahead with you.
I always say this, the thing people look for in the Westwood Police Office, they want us out there, they love the presence, but discretion is the biggest thing. I don't think residents want officers out there writing a $100 ticket for every person going through that red light. Because guess what? Every other person's Mrs. Jones or Mrs. Smith lives here. Oh, I thought I could make the light. It's just like you said, it's just people being people. And it's not like these aggressive, drivers that are, with a bad history. It's your everyday people that they're in a rush for whatever reason. So our officers are out there. I can honestly say I worked a patrol shift, and I work mostly an administrative schedule, but I took an overtime shift. I had 2 red light violations, Wash at East Street this past Saturday. That's just me. But there's 35 of us, and there's 25 of us that are in patrol. these officers are out there making these stops, and the biggest thing is they're educating the public. To be honest, we give a lot of written warnings. We're not really inclined to give money citations. The old, perception of cops wanting to write tickets, they have to meet quotas. Quotas don't exist, okay? We can just put that right out there. We encourage our officers to go out and actually make stops because that's their best way to interact with you guys, interact with the public. And at the same time, you're making a stop. People like to see that, and we're educating whoever the driver is. Hey, next time.
So where is the most dangerous intersection, so they know?
The most dangerous intersection, I'd probably say, is the East Street Rotary. I mean,
I would've guessed that too.
our highest number of accidents. Yeah.
I would think that too, yeah. Yeah. So, unfortunately, it's 2:00, and Chief Deckers, you spent way too, you didn't give him enough time.
He might differ.
Does anybody else have any questions? We only had one.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, just give a,
The end of Carroll Avenue on the low end, they have an island going out to Route 1, and people park up on there, sometimes 3-4 cars. Makes it very difficult, 4 or 5 o'clock at night, to get into traffic, 2 cars wide going back to Norwood.
Okay. I wasn't aware of that, but that's something I can have our officers take a look
Maybe they're
at.
college kids and they're gone.
Okay, sure.
It's very difficult, though, to, get speed up to get into traffic at that time of night.
So this is Carroll Ave on the train station side, heading out to go Route 1 south?
Yes.
Okay. Do you think those are just random people parking there, or do you think those are actual?
No, I think they're neighbors.
They're neighborhood
Might have
people?
kids home from school, or
Sure.
home for the summer,
Okay,
but they park up on the island instead of just before the island. So you don't have any, they can't see.
sure,
They've
yeah,
had 4 cars up on top of it,
I understand.
you know.
Yeah, that's something I can have our traffic unit go down and take a look at. Is there any time of day that it occurs more often? Is it in the evenings when they're home, or
I would say, it's, well, no, I've seen it anytime.
any time of day?
But
That's something we can look
It might be
into.
just kids home for school, for the college. We never had that every, other years.
Okay,
One more question?
it is.
Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, just a quick one, Sergeant. So you're right, things are changing in the town, is that true?
Yes.
And we're no longer a rural community as we used to be. That said, I don't think the culture necessarily has changed within the residential population here. I think people still think that this is somewhat of a suburb of Boston, rural, and so forth. So we have, I'm obviously on the Islington side of town. So we have Top Golf that just came in. We have the off-ramp coming off at 95. We have a whole bunch of people that aren't of this town that are using various streets of the town as cut-throughs. So I appreciate the discretionary aspect in terms of handing out warnings, but we do have some blatant traffic violations going on here in terms of speed. We certainly have blinking lights to say no heavy-duty trucks on Canton Street, for instance. Those are obviously ignored as well. We have trucks going back and forth between University Avenue and 128. Is there any intent there on the police department from just the traffic discussion that you had earlier to get a better handle in monitoring some of these violations?
So, like I said earlier, traffic is the #1 complaint that we deal with day in and day out. And it's the one area that we target pretty heavily. Like I said, we have a dedicated traffic unit. Every patrol unit is fully equipped with radar and equipment to handle traffic offenses. Our officers are trained to detect, obviously, aggressive driving, to look for egregious driving errors. The discretion part, it really doesn't matter, in my opinion. I've been doing this, whether it's a warning or verbal warning, a money take, that always seems the big question. The biggest part is our officers have basically, it's like a toolkit. We can choose, I can do A, I can do B, I can do C. I think every scenario plays out differently. No one situation is the same. So like to answer the question about, do we give mostly warnings? Yes, I would say we're predominantly, we're pretty lenient when it comes to that. But when it comes to actual enforcement, I would say that we're very proactive. We've always been what we call a Chapter 90 town. So Chapter 90 is the general law that governs most of the motor vehicle traffic offenses. That's what we do. That is our expertise. Our officers are out there. You talk about cut-through traffic. I mean, that's an interesting term. You could technically say that everybody who travels up 109 is cut-through traffic. To me, I understand what you're saying. But yes, a lot of the motorists that come through this town are not residents. A lot of the crimes we deal with are not committed by residents. They're committed by people outside. There is a lot of cut-through traffic. But with that being said, our traffic guys and our patrol officers, they really are, they hit all the areas. They hit Washington Street, they hit 109. They're down on Conant Road. They're down on Forbes Road. They're on Canton Street. They're on University Ave. So I'd like to think that we're actively monitoring all of those situations, and we're out there enforcing. Just rest assured, we're out there, and we're making those stops.
One last question,
Sure.
as an adjunct to me being over on Canton Street. Are either one of you planning on attending tonight's meeting with the Massachusetts Department of Transportation in terms of the reconstruction of Canton Street?
I'm personally not going to be there, but one of our traffic officers is going to be there. Yep.
Let me ask you this, do either one of you support or are you opposed to the changes on that street? Let me put you on the spot.
I don't speak to traffic and those types of issues unless it's an issue with, traffic calming.
It's definitely a safety issue, Chief, okay? We're talking about some major changes to what otherwise is a historic and scenic thoroughfare that's been there for well over 300 years, taking stagecoaches from Boston out to Canton. Now we're talking about putting in 3 lanes, 2 traffic, and 1 for bicycles and electric-powered scooters and those types of things, plus a sidewalk. In short, we're going to be taking down over 1,000 trees on that street. To the woman's point over here in terms of canopies, we love the canopy, by the way. Okay? So I guess that my problem here is that whole reconstruction project is being thrown at the residents, or the abutters, if you will, of that neighborhood of Canton Street as, quote, a safety upgrade to the town. Indeed, if it's a safety upgrade, both of you guys are clearly involved in the safety of this town, and that's why we're having this meeting today. So that's why I'm putting you a little bit on the spot. Have you seen the design?
I have not.
Have you?
I've seen parts of the design. I have not seen the full design to come to fruition yet.
Well, so here we are. We're getting in front of the Department of Transportation this evening at 7 o'clock over here at Downey. And we have an opposition group, obviously, that is going to be in the cheering section with signs and the whole thing, that are basically going to make our voices heard from a democratic perspective. But it seems to me, if it's being pitched as a safety feature to the town, it seems to me that both organizations, both fire and police, should be represented. And I'm delighted, Sergeant, that one of your colleagues will be there. That said, I'm disappointed that you both aren't terribly familiar with what the DPW is doing in terms of bringing more safety to the town. Because personally, I think it's going to do only one thing, and that is increase the traffic, increase the velocity of the traffic, and increase the number of cars that are coming off 95 and those cut-through folks that you and I talked about a minute ago. It's going to increase those numbers significantly.
I'll say this. I grew up in this town. I work here. I absolutely care about what happens in Westwood. With that being said, I personally don't live here anymore. I live in another town about 30 minutes away. But that doesn't mean I don't care what's going up on Canton Street. Now, in every debate, there's 2 sides, okay? And I try to stay neutral because at the end of the day, the citizens can voice their concern to town hall, okay? The police isn't really going to take a strong position one way or another. When you talk about safety, yes, you can make the pitch for safety. They're gonna be putting sidewalks up there. So naturally, I could understand, if I lived on Canton Street, the residents are gonna be upset because it's your property. You now have to look at what's going on out there. There's a new sidewalk, the roadway is maybe widening. But for bicycle, you wanna talk about safety, there's gonna be sidewalks for people to walk on Canton Street. There's gonna be bike lanes. We could go either way. You could advocate for either side. I just think it's the position of the police department that if they're gonna do this, it would be safer for bicyclists, for pedestrians. So again, with that being said, I do understand that as a resident, if your house was on Canton Street or maybe in the neighboring streets, they probably don't like it. So, you know.
It's not that, Sergeant. It's the fact that you're encouraging increased volume, and thus you're going to encourage, by definition, increased violation in terms of speed, a truck movement, etc. So you're asking for more of the same, but in a larger sense. So it's really not a question of, well, I mean, it is a question of destroying people's property. There's no question about that. But, and more importantly, from a safety perspective, it is a question about changing the rules of the game in terms of people driving fast on the highway, in terms of the number of cars on that roadway, etc. And by the way, I don't think to this point, at least I'm not aware of any, I don't think we've had any incidences of people with bicycles being at all hurt on Canton Street that I'm aware of, and I've been there for 43 years, so I really don't see that as a real rationale for the level of destruction that's going to go on that street. So I'm just going to leave it at that and let you guys work it out with the DPW.
So thank you.
And I'm going to work it out with the Massachusetts Department of Transportation.
So can we, thank you everyone for joining us. Your questions were great, but more importantly, thank you both of you for coming today. Give a round of applause. It's like fire squad here. So thank you so much. We really appreciate you coming. Was this helpful to everyone? Yes. So we're going to keep doing Community Spotlight. Thank you all for joining us, but mostly important, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.